At 6:07 p.m., people in Beirut were cooking dinner. Children were playing on balconies. Traffic filled the streets. Nothing felt unusual. Then a strange fire started near the port. Small at first, almost harmless. People pulled out their phones. They filmed it. They laughed. No one ran, because no one knew they were standing next to one of the most powerful non-nuclear bombs in modern history. 7 seconds later, the sky turned white. A shockwave moving faster than sound tore through the city. Buildings folded. Glass became shrapnel. And in an instant, Beirut was no longer the same city. This wasn't a missile. This wasn't terrorism. This was engineering failure. On August 4th, 2020, Beirut suffered one of the most devastating urban explosions ever recorded. The blast was so powerful, it was heard over 200 kilometers away, across the Mediterranean Sea. Windows shattered 10 kilometers from the epicenter. A crater 140 meters wide formed where buildings once stood. At least 200 people died. Over 6,000 were injured. 300,000 lost their homes. The cost, over $15 billion. But the most terrifying part? This wasn't caused by war. It wasn't caused by a bomb. It was caused by someone that had been sitting quietly in a warehouse for 6 years. 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, a white powder, cheap, common, and catastrophically misunderstood. Chapter 1, the material. Ammonium nitrate is not some exotic weapon. Farmers use it as fertilizer. Construction companies use it for blasting rock. You can literally hold a lighter to it, and it will not explode. So how does something so ordinary erase a city? The answer lies in chemistry. Ammonium nitrate is what engineers call an oxidizer. That means it doesn't need oxygen from the air to burn. It carries its own oxygen internally, which means once it begins reacting, you cannot smother it. You cannot suffocate it. And under the wrong conditions, you cannot stop it. Chapter 2, 6 years of negligence. The danger didn't begin in 2020. It began in 2014. A cargo ship carrying 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate was seized and stored at Beirut's port. The shipment was dumped inside Warehouse 12, and then forgotten for 6 years. No climate control, no ventilation planning, no hazard zoning, and no respect for storage compatibility. Even worse, fireworks tires and fuel were stored in the same building. Oxidizer next to fuel. This is something every first-year safety engineer is taught never to allow. The warehouse was no longer storage. It was a loaded weapon. Chapter 3, the fire. On August 4th, workers were repairing a door on the warehouse. Welding equipment was used. Sparks flew. The sparks did not hit the fertilizer directly. They hit the nearby fireworks. The first sounds people heard weren't explosions. They were small pops, crackling, fireworks igniting one by one. People began filming. They thought it was interesting. No one understood what the fire was heating up behind the walls. Inside the warehouse, the temperature was rising, and ammonium nitrate behaves very differently when it gets hot. Chapter 4, the chemical turning point. At around 170 degrees Celsius, ammonium nitrate begins to decompose. It breaks down into gases. Hot gases, expanding gases. Pressure starts building. But here's the critical part. The material had been stored for years. The pellets had fused together into a massive solid block. Heat became trapped. Pressure became trapped. This is called confinement. And confinement is exactly what turns burning into detonation. Outside the building, smoke changed color, from gray to deep red-brown. That color wasn't random. That was nitrogen dioxide, a chemical signature, a warning that the reaction had crossed the point of no return. Chapter 5, the detonation. Then, the critical threshold was reached. Engineers call it the critical diameter, the moment where a reaction stops being a burn and becomes a detonation. In less than a millisecond, 2,750 tons of solid chemical converted into superheated gas. The volume expanded over 2,000 times instantly. The pressure had nowhere to go, so the city absorbed it. A shock wave moved outward at over 3,000 meters per second, faster than sound, faster than human reaction. That shock wave crushed buildings, ruptured organs, and pulverized concrete. And then came the image the world would never forget: the White Dome. Chapter 6, The Wilson Cloud. That expanding white sphere wasn't smoke. It was physics. It's called a Wilson cloud. The shock wave compressed the humid air so violently that water vapor condensed instantly. For a brief moment, the air itself became visible, a perfect spherical wall of pressure. The city wasn't just hit by fire. It was hit by atmospheric collapse. When it cleared, Beirut had a crater filled with seawater, and a skyline permanently altered. Over 200 lost their lives, thousands injured, entire neighborhoods destroyed, not because of war, but because of poor storage decisions, ignored paperwork, deferred responsibility. This disaster is studied today in engineering, logistics, and safety programs worldwide. It teaches one brutal truth: catastrophes are rarely caused by one big mistake. They are built slowly, decision by decision, shortcut by shortcut, year by year. Beirut was not destroyed by chemistry. It was destroyed by negligence. I'm Build and Rise Network. Respect the systems. Respect the physics. Because the cost of ignoring them is always paid by POP.